I call the advisory committee meeting to order at 7:30 p.m. If it's okay with everyone, why don't we start with, we have some attendees, Ben and Lisa here from CPC, and you can will start with them and we can finish the minutes later. I'll do Lisa and Ben were here first, so I'll promote them first.
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening.
Good evening, Ben.
Oh, there we are. Good to see you.
See everybody.
Yeah, so if you're ready, I've got a little spiel ready to just let you know about our citizens petition warrant article.
Yeah, just so everybody, as a heads up, you are Article
10.
Article 10, citizens petition appointments to CPC from boards and committees. So I'll let you take it away.
Correct. Thank you. So our town's bylaw says that the select board shall appoint 7 members as designated by 7 different boards, committees, and commissions, as well as 2 at-large members. So for many years, this was understood to mean that the contributing town bodies were the ones who made the decision which of their members to appoint to the CPC, and then the select board shall appoint them. Recently, over the last 18 months, the select board has reinterpreted this phrase "shall appoint" to mean that they also have the authority to deny an appointment to an individual that was designated by their board, committee, or commission. So that interpretation, it doesn't align with our enabling legislation, the Community Preservation Act, MGL Chapter 44B. So that's why we've launched this citizens petition warrant article to change the wording of our town's bylaw to ensure that the volunteers chosen to sit on CPC are chosen by those most qualified to make the decision. And just to illustrate that, we believe, for instance, the Recreation Commission, they are the ones who know best which of their members to appoint to the CPC. Somebody they've worked with week in and week out for years, whose work ethic and record of success make them the best possible appointee, and and so on for all of the other contributing town bodies. There are a lot of folks like me. I was appointed about a dozen years ago to conservation. And that predates, the tenure of all of the current select board. And I think there are a lot of hardworking volunteers in town that the select board may not know very well, but the folks who do know them very well are the town bodies that they sit with. So we feel that the experts in this, the ones with the most knowledge, ought to be the ones making the decision. So with this proposed change, we would adopt language directly out of MGL Chapter 44B. So there are 196 communities in Massachusetts, CPA communities in Massachusetts, Community Preservation Act communities. Roughly 90% of them appoint CPC members in exactly the way I just described. And this actually includes our neighbors, Westboro, Northborough, Ashland, Hopkinton, Sudbury. And it's interesting. This came from some research that Lisa Braccio did that was really interesting. Virtually all of the very few municipalities who don't follow this best practice, like Southborough, they were all the earliest adopters of the Community Preservation Act. We adopted it back in 2003. They adopted the act before best practices were really established around the Commonwealth. So the change that we propose, I don't know if you folks have the article in front of you. Let's see, if I could share my screen, I actually have it up right now, the proposed change, to walk you through it, if that would be helpful. Let me try. Oh.
Should be able to now.
There we go. Okay, so this is a portion of Article 4, Section 916 of our town code. And the strikeout is the existing language right now. The committee shall be appointed by the select board. The strikeout we propose to delete and add in bold beneath that, the composition of the committee, the appointment authority, and the term of office for the committee members shall be as follows. That language comes directly out of 44B. Other language that we added was by a majority vote in each of the descriptions of the contributing town bodies. And the reason for that is we wanted to make sure that this is, a majority vote of again, the experts, the folks who know best, and not, for instance, a committee decided to, you know, just have their chair appoint somebody. We really think it ought to come from a majority vote of the town body. So I will turn off sharing. Oh, how do I turn that off? Stop share. There we go. Sorry about that. So that's the change that we propose. We have the support of more than 100 signers of our citizens petition, the Planning Board, Open Space Preservation Commission, Recreation Commission, Conservation Commission, Southborough Housing Authority, and we hope the Historical Commission. They are actually meeting right now as we speak, discussing this very issue with our member, Grant Farrington. So that's it in a nutshell. If anyone has any questions, I would love to try to answer them.
All right, why don't we go around? Anybody that has any questions, feel free to jump in. Go ahead, Barry.
So it seems like there's a legal aspect to this and a policy aspect to this. Yeah, I think you said that what's happening now is in conflict with the enabling legislation. Can you explain that a little more?
Right. So when the town adopted the CPA back in 2003, the intent was to follow the existing legislation, the CPA Chapter 44B, and the writers of the bylaw actually believed that that language, the select board shall appoint, really did require the select board to follow the lead of the contributing town body. They didn't foresee, you know, this sort of reinterpretation of that language. Now, I want to be really clear. What we're doing right now, it's not in any sense illegal, and I don't want to give that impression. You know, at the end of the day, the Attorney General did approve this warrant article back in 2003. Excuse me, this was by ballot initiative. I apologize. They did approve it back in 2003. But again, since then, communities around the Commonwealth have established sort of a best practice of following 44B exactly. And when I mentioned our neighbors, it's a really interesting fact that Lisa uncovered in the incredible research she did. Those are neighboring communities, Westboro, Northborough, Ashland, Hopkins, and Sudbury, who do it this way. They're also clients of our current town council and his firm. That's the way that they do it, the way that we are proposing to do in Southborough.
Ben, can I just jump in for 1 second?
Please.
So, I believe it's Ashland, and I don't believe that he's counsel in the other towns, Ben.
Oh, excuse me.
He's counsel in at least 7 towns that have the language as we're trying to change it to.
My apologies. Thank you. As I said, Lisa gets credit for doing some really incredible research to help us in crafting this article.
Go ahead, Larry.
So just to make sure I understand the difference, so the interpretation you're looking at now is basically that the select board would formalize the appointments that are made by the individual committees as opposed to actually do the appointing.
In fact, so the select board would still be the appointing authority for the 2 at-large members, but the appointing authority for the other 7 would be the town bodies who are contributing the members. So the Conservation Commission, Historical Commission, Recreation Commission, and so forth. And that's how it's done, you know, with roughly 175 communities around the Commonwealth.
So the select board has no part in those appointments. It's only the 2 at-large appointments that the select board participates with.
That's correct.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead, Aaron.
As a citizen's position, is this binding, or is it just an advisement position to the
It is binding. It would trigger an amendment to our town code that would then go to the AG's office for approval within, I think they have 90 days to act.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Marcy.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute and I raised my hand too. I have a quick question for Ben and Lisa. Given that the CPC has a huge responsibility with a lot of money at stake, how do you propose that if somebody's appointed by a committee that then doesn't maybe operate in good faith or doesn't have a lot of contributions or abilities, and it's pretty obvious, but select board is removed from any authority, how would you propose that that situation be fixed if there's no oversight by select board?
So first, one crucial piece of this is that with the exception of planning board, all of these other town bodies are actually appointed by select board. For instance, I was appointed by select board to conservation. I think we'd be in a very similar situation where we are now, where the select board appoints people for a term of 3 years. If that were to happen, if we had a bad faith actor, which hasn't happened, in the 20 years of
I
existence,
understand.
the select board having appointed them, the term runs for 3 years. And I don't believe they can remove somebody from a term partway through. It would be a similar situation with these contributing town bodies. However, I have a great deal of faith in the town bodies that at the conclusion of such a term, were it to happen, that the Recreation Commission or the Housing Authority, whoever contributed that member, would recognize the problem and take care of it.
I guess my only comment to that, I've been trying to think this through, would be if somebody's appointed for 3 years, year one on CPC, some problem or issue comes up, they still have 2 more years and they still have 2 more years of financial cycles and a lot of money at stake. And, all due respect, but the committees, if select board said historical, you don't agree with the member you put forward, they would still have 5 or 6 other members to choose from. In this case, the member that wouldn't be feasible. So I think that's sort of an argument that I haven't wrapped my head around or reconciled.
Understood. If I may just offer just a quick response. I think that's one way that this proposal addresses that, is that these contributing bodies, like using the example of historical, I feel like they have a much more intimate knowledge of their members, generally speaking, than the select board does. And I with that insight, I think the scenario that you're picturing, this hypothetical scenario, would be less likely to happen than with the select board making the appointment, where oftentimes the only knowledge they would have of this person is one 5 to 10 minute sort of interview at a select board hearing. So I think there is a built-in protection that it does require us to trust, our other volunteers in town government, but I think that's trustful at least.
Larry, you had a question?
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to make a comment to Marcy's comment. I guess I guess I had two reactions. The first is that it strikes me that the choice of a problematic person could happen regardless of who's doing the appointing, whether it's the select board or the committee. And I guess my view is sort of the opposite, and that is, without claiming any distrust of the select board, this approach would effectively decentralize the appointments so that there isn't one body selecting all of the people. And in that sense, it makes me feel better about it, not worse.
Can I respond to that just quickly? I believe the underlying legislation says that the members will be appointed or elected. And I know that that's not the question in front of us tonight, but I personally would feel like electing CPC to me would make quite a bit of sense versus appointing. Thank you.
Yeah, I was reading the same thing, Marcia. I'm torn. I think for me, I think it's, if you take a step back and think of this not as a town and volunteers, as you think of this as the role the select board play as the CEO, as the elected, head of the town. It'd be like the president not being able to remove the cabinet of a prior administration. I'm not saying that the appointment shouldn't be done by the committee. I just don't like the fact that, if a previous select board or something was wrong, as Marcy said, a bad actor, you'd have to wait, say, 3 years and or maybe, to change that. I think there should be something that allows for a more, like kind of like a recall type of thing. But again, that's not in front of us today, but but I think that just kind of,
Kind of is and it isn't. Isn't that the last citizens?
oh, that's, I don't know if that's just for select board or what position, but well, I mean, that's a different conversation about that article, but I think,
I think it's the same story, right?
yeah, I think it's, there's two sides of the fence. So you want the protection of the people that were elected earlier and you don't want things to change and you want volunteers to be protected, which is very important. And I understand that they're doing a lot of volunteerism, but at the same time, people are elected to become, to change the town and do what the voters did. So I'm kind of torn between giving the power to the CEO to be able to influence the town versus the protecting the volunteers and how they're appointed.
Can I jump
Go ahead,
in,
Larry.
Andrew? Oh, sorry.
Just a question, in the current model, can the select board, what's the word? I don't want to say disappoint, deappoint a CPC member if that person is problematic in some way, or is it the same issue that person would have to serve his or her 3-year term?
I think I've never seen them unappoint somebody that's already been appointed. Somebody would have to resign and then they would, or somebody was up for appointment. And I think that's what happened in this situation. Is somebody was up for appointment and decided not to reappoint. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Just speaking to your point that you just made, Andrew, I certainly understand the concern. Another dimension to that is it's a fairly routine occurrence that select board members leave, new ones come on, and the new ones coming on, they are the executive authority in town, but because of what you were just speaking about with Mr. Sandberg, they are living with appointments made by their predecessors. In the same way that they would be living with appointments made by these other town bodies who, again, just to stress it, these town bodies, with the exception of planning board, have already been appointed by the select board. I don't know if that helps your thinking at all, but it's just another dimension.
No, I mean, again, I think it's the nature of how it is, and it's just wrapping my head around. I don't see that in other forms of government, right? It doesn't happen to state government. It doesn't happen federal government, right? Besides Supreme Court justices, they get a lifetime, or judges, right? It's basically at will employment, and people can do that kind of thing.
This is more like the head of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, which is, again, not really a government entity. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thanks. So just to add, one other, or maybe a comment or two to this as well. Who better to police? Like, we use historical because they've been used as a reference tonight. If somebody on historical is doing and acting in a manner that is outside the scope of the rest of the committee, then the committee can take a vote and appoint somebody else.
But can they, Lisa?
Not what the law says. That's what you have in front of us. That's exactly what we're saying. The way it's saying is you're appointed to a term of a specific time, and there's no language in here
To remove.
that person can be changed once their term is set until there's.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, it's not just for this article. It's just in general the concept of, you're on there for 3 years, whether you do a good job or not, without or we have to try to convince you to resign. It just seems strange to me. But
Forgive me, Andrew. Forgive me if I missed it, but if you're, if you have 1 year left, if you're on historical and you have 1 year left, and historical appoints you to a 3-year term on CPC, and the select board then turn around and do not reappoint you to historical, I mean, your CPC term ends.
Yes.
So I think that this is my biggest concern with the change, is that the control that the select board has today will be exerted through alternate means. And I think it could have a deleterious effect on the current commissions, which I don't want to see.
Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you. You know, so one piece of this, and I'll tell you the reason, the impetus for us to go to the effort to get on special time meeting was, you know, during the last 18 months, two volunteers who were designated by their town bodies, Dorian Jasinski from CHOPSI and Kristen Laval from Recreation. You know, it's interesting, Dorian had been a prior member of CPC. I think her tenure, Tim, I can't recall if it overlapped yours or not. It may have been just after.
I think it was after.
Yeah, Dorian, you know, a long time volunteer here in town for 30 years. She wasn't removed. Her appointment was denied. She had left the CPC and was seeking, was designated by SHOPSI to come back. Her appointment was denied. And it was because, you know, of a difference of opinion with the select board, but certainly not because she had been acting in bad faith in any way.
Right.
And with Kristen Laval, same thing. We were really looking forward to having her reappointed as a member. She's a very valuable member of CPC. Frankly, it really left us in a lurch from a quorum standpoint. An energetic and very effective volunteer. You know, one of the doers, one of the people who actually does the work. We really could have used her help, and her appointment was turned down also. So that led us down this path to think about, you know, who has the most insight to who the best volunteers are, and we feel it lies with these boards, committees, and commissions.
Let me ask you, were the underlying appointments renewed as well?
It's an interesting question, Tim. I can't recall that issue ever coming up. You know, we've had folks who have resigned, like Andrew Mills, resigned concurrently from CPC and the planning board, but we haven't had somebody. Well, for instance, Kristen Laval, I believe she was reappointed to Lisa. Correct? No, okay, I have that.
No,
wrong.
she still has 1 more year on recreation.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
when Dorian was denied, she still had 1 more year on CHOPSI as well.
Yeah, so, you know, Tim, this hasn't, geez, I've been on community preservation for 8 years now, and it hasn't, the issue has not arisen.
If I could just make a point again, and Tim, you weren't here for this, and I don't know if you've seen. Sorry,
Yes.
I was muted, sorry.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Sorry about that. So Tim, I don't know if you were here when we had talked about initially that out of the 196 towns that have enacted the CPA, 175 or almost 90% of them follow the chapter 44B language as we have presented on the screen tonight, including 7 towns that our town council is town council in as well, sorry. And, you know, so out of those 21 towns were early adopters. So the statewide practice now is, you know, I understand the concerns that you have, but I think 175 of the 196 is a pretty strong track record of no one going back and changing this. I mean, making these corrections brings our bylaw up to the current best practices statewide. It aligns with the language and the enabling legislation and allows the CPC to continue its important work with a committee that's unhampered by blocked appointments and representing diverse viewpoints among boards, committees, and commissions. And the select board still have a seat at the table. They still appoint the 2 citizens at large as well. So we're just looking to bring our bylaw in line with what almost 90% of other towns in the Commonwealth use. And there haven't been issues with doing that. So I have a little bit of faith in that. And I have faith in the people that volunteer and step up to serve as well. I think we have to have faith in, the people that are appointed. I mean, I've only been on the CPC for a year, but I'll tell you what, I've served with some great people that have brought valuable insight and have changed my opinions on things. And that's what it's about. It's about doing what's best for the town, us, making sure that we're doing the job that we were put there to do with, making sure projects are qualifying. And so for me, again, I think we have to have faith that, and these people were already appointed by the select board, other than the planning board, which is an elected seat, and the housing authority, which is an elected seat. So the rest of the members are already appointed by the select board. So I would imagine they'd seat them having some faith in the job that they would do. So just something to consider.
Would it make more sense for the terms to coincide with the terms on the underlying committees? Just so it syncs up. Then, you're not having a midterm reappointment to the committee or whatever.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, Andrew. We were borrowing our language directly from, from the statute from 44B. And this, it's like I was saying in response to Tim, it's something that just hasn't come up. So that idea just never, it never came to us. But it's certainly worthy of thought, worthy of discussion. With the article already published, I don't know that would be within the four corners, for an amendment or something like that on the floor. But it's a very good idea, and I would certainly be supportive in a future article or something like that.
I mean, I think you can't do it ahead of time, but I think you could do it on the floor. I mean, obviously it'd be up to Paul to whether or not he thought it was in the four corners, but I mean, considering that most of the terms are 3 years or more, I think it's certainly the same kind of factor. You're just basically syncing them up to make it a little easier from an appointment perspective. Then you don't run into the, somebody gets off the committee and still had TPC time on it, and
This just in, it's just some interesting news. I got news from Grant Farrington, our historical rep, that Historical Commission has voted in favor, 5 yes, 0 no, 2 abstentions, to support the article. And so, Andrew, I guess what I would say is, if such an amendment was made on the floor and was considered within the four corners of what's already been posted in the warrant, without seeing the language, I haven't seen the language yet, but generally I think I would be supportive of that. The appointment is to a term of 3 years or to the end of the current term of the existing appointment on the contributing body, whichever is less, and then reappointment.
I think it was everything but for the at large ones. It would say, the term corresponds or coincides with the term of the underlying, committee that they're being, a member of. All right, I would maybe say, Ben, if you could take that back to your committee, if they would be in favor of that, I think that would be a good edit. But I wouldn't. I'm not going to propose it on the floor unless that's something, or I would suggest it coming from you guys if you thought it was a good idea. But I think it could make it certainly cleaner from a management perspective.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to try to meet in the 15 minutes before town meeting over at Troutier in a classroom. So I will raise it certainly with the committee.
Okay.
I have one more question. How many committees have supported this that don't have a member on seated? Because you would inherently understand that everybody who has a member on the committee is going to be in support of this. Your real test is tonight with advisory and people who have no skin in the game. So how many other committees have vetted it that don't have an active member there?
So we're certainly hoping for your support this evening. The other town body that's voted on it was the select board, and as you say, you expect support from these contributing town bodies. The select board voted against it for reasons that I think we can understand also.
And if I can add to, Ben, I think the challenge Mercy was
Yeah.
from the time the petition was turned in to town meeting is such a short window, and not all the boards and committees are meeting, you know?
I get it.
Um,
I just want to, I'm just throwing that out as an advisory
Sure.
member because you might hear that at town meeting. Because it's sort of like, you know, select board is like almost like the parent and all the committees, you know. Of course, if you ask the kids, like, yeah, we want our own person, right? That makes sense. So
No,
I'm just
thank you. I
throwing
mean,
that out as something.
we appreciate the feedback we're getting tonight. I think it's really important what we're hearing from you,
Yeah.
and we do appreciate it. And we appreciate the time in allowing us to come as well.
And don't get me wrong, advisory, I can think I speak for everybody that thinks that CPC is very valuable and really appreciate the work you're doing. Just trying to suss out all the options here.
Absolutely.
Larry. go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was just trying to understand the implications of the proposal that you are making, Andrew. So are you saying that if somebody doesn't have 3 years left in their term on that board or committee, then they're not eligible to be appointed to the CPC?
No, it's just instead of like say you know somebody gets appointed from historical and they have 1 year left on their historical term, right? They would be, in theory, have 3 years on their CPC, but they wouldn't be on historical anymore. So it's like, are they still on CPC? No, because they need to be on historical in order to be on CPC. And I don't even know if that's true or not.
No,
I
no,
thought I heard Howard say that if somebody left the committee, then their term on CPC terminated at the same time.
that's correct.
I would think,
Actually,
No,
when
but-
I picked up Andrew Mill's seat and I finished out his 3-year term with a year. And then I just, Ben and I, you know, just went and got reappointed. So I was appointed for a year initially, and now I just got appointed for a 3-year term.
so it's just one of those, like it gets
Yeah.
a little cleaner if it basically like, you know, that you appoint both at the same time. But you know, again, I know that's not the hill to die on. Howard, did you have something?
No, I was just saying, I don't think it was me that brought that point
Oh,
up.
sorry.
Someone, I don't think it was me. That's all.
All right.
I think it was Tim.
Any more questions? Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining.
Thank you very much for having us. It's great to see you.
Oh,
See you all at town meeting.
Good night.
All right. Let's bring over Chief Newell. There he is, Chief.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. All right, Chief is here to talk about Article 16, lieutenant position. Again,
Yes.
I'll take it away.
So when we had the FY25 review, the budget process, I had brought forward the request to add a lieutenant for the assistance and the management and the overwhelming tasks that we've assigned to our one lieutenant at this time. There's so many things involved in the current lieutenant's job description, and with the added legislation through post, through the body-worn camera program, through the accreditation program that we currently are a part of. And, you know, things like with post, you know, we have to have a civil rights officer. We have to have a lot more management and oversight on compliance and ongoing policies and regulation changes in place for the post law that came out, the crime prevention, crime reform law 2020. So it was simply becoming overwhelming. That's why I went for the position, the second lieutenant. And I went before the select board and the advisory board and asked for this position. And the select board voted unanimously, and then we talked about doing the staffing study. And the staffing study was completed and it did recognize the need for this position. And it talked about an immediate need, which I feel is very important because that's the reason why I brought it forward in the first place. It's simply with, from an outside agency looking in at our agency and looking at the tasks that the current lieutenant is performing, you can see why there's a need to relieve him of some of this stuff. The reason why, again, I wanted to bring it forward again and not wait until next year is because this is something that the department needs. We have a staffing crisis going on right now where we've lost at least 8 officers since January of last year. And that has to do with a matter of pay, a matter of, there's a small candidate pool for the police officer positions. And we're seeing a lot of departments poaching from our department, from other departments, and it's kind of a crisis situation. That in turn has brought on a lot of young officers for this department. And we're talking about 12, 13 officers with under 5 years experience. And it again increases the need for supervisory oversight and allowing my sergeants to be on the road to supervise these young officers while the lieutenants would be handling all the training, all the records keeping, and all the other issues that we need to do on the admin level. So the purpose of adding the second lieutenant would be create an admin lieutenant and an operations lieutenant. And Andrew, I had sent you kind of like a proposal today. I don't know if you received it.
Yep, I got that forwarded around to the committee members.
Okay, and in that proposal, it kind of breaks down exactly what the job responsibilities would be for each one of the each one of the lieutenants, operations and admin. It also shows comparable town departments with population-wise and their current lieutenant staffing. We are the only town that has 1 lieutenant from all of our surrounding towns. Each town either has 2 lieutenants or 1 lieutenant and a deputy chief at the admin level, non-union members. And in that table, I included some comparables. A lot of these departments around the state have added command staff positions when they've adopted new programs like accreditation, body-worn camera, and we never did that. So we're really starting to see the effects of not adding that additional admin staff. I think it's Sutton added a lieutenant Hudson added a lieutenant just for the body-worn camera program. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm bringing it back to the advisory board. I'm hoping that you'll support it for the special town meeting. The select board recently voted unanimously to support the addition of the second lieutenant, and that's why I'm here.
So Chief, thanks for sending over that thing. I was looking at the comparison. So I agree that, certainly everybody else has kind of, that was like 2. So if we do the second lieutenant, you're not going to look for a captain or a deputy chief position anytime soon. That would kind of put us, like, it looks like a lot of towns around our size have like 2 of those leadership positions, whether it's 1 lieutenant and 1 captain, or 2 lieutenants and, or 1 lieutenant, 1 deputy chief. So we're just going to, for now, your request is just to do the 2 lieutenants, right?
Yes, for our size department right now, it's, that's what we're looking at for our command staff.
Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to Howard.
Hi, Chief.
Hey, Howard.
Thank you for the revised sheet that you sent around. So we did get that. I did read it. And it was much, much, much clearer than the last time we spoke.
Yep.
And that was, as if you remember, I was kind of against it hesitant, not against it. I was questioning it because the last time they came across that you really were asking for this position solely for body cameras.
Yep.
And I am still of the opinion that that doesn't need to be a lieutenant position. However, with what's here and all it's much more sussed out. You have a plan and the breakout And frankly, I'm amazed at how much work, even with two people, that what's on both lists, for both lieutenants' job.
Yeah. Thank you.
So it is much more thought out and expressed. That makes this, frankly, for me, very easy to support. So thank you for doing the work to making it clear, because again, I will say thank you again for that, because that's what we needed to make this go.
Agreed.
Great. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just
Marcy?
want to piggyback on Howard. Hi, Chief Newell.
Hi.
Howard and I were two of the hesitant folks last time, and I couldn't agree more. I am convinced with your plan. You did a lot of work. I appreciate the result of this study and all the work you put into it, and I'd have no trouble supporting it at this point. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Marcy.
Any additional questions? Seeing that while Chief's here, is there a motion to support Article 16 as written?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call vote. Howard,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
Larry,
I,
Barry,
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. There you go, Chief.
All right. Thank you all very
Thanks
much.
for doing all the work to do the study and put this together and stick with us. I think we got to the end result, and
Yes.
nobody can fault us for doing our homework.
Nope. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, so we went. Let me get my cheat sheet open here. So do we want to, are there any other questions anybody has on any of the other articles? Mimi, looks like Mimi's in the audience, so is Sam. If anybody has any questions on the MBTA one, or probably the rec one, if Sam wanted to talk to that, does anybody have any questions on those two? Or is everybody ready just to kind of go down the list, talk about them and vote?
Which one's the rec one?
Let me, Article 9, that is to see if the town will vote to recommend that the select board should exercise its authority to enter into intermunicipal agreement with Metro West Regional Emergency Communication Center, the REC, to provision of safety, including 911, yada, yada, yada. So basically the joining of the Metro West REC, not on a Superfund site, but, but to join that. I could share my screen so people can see that. Yeah, you guys can see my screen, okay?
Yep. I have it open too. So. And if I remember, this one is just to get opinion. It's not doing anything, right?
Yeah, I think that the select board, agreed that they would take this back to town meeting after the last town meeting, and they're doing what they said. I mean, again, it's, it technically is their call. They don't have to come to town meeting, but this is to basically recommend to them to do it, which I agree with, having town meeting to provide their input.
Yep.
And then we already went to planning board and talked, again, to give our comments there, but does anybody have any further questions that they might want to run by Mimi while she's here? Or we can just start going down the list of articles here.
If we need anything.
Okay.
More
All right,
from, we should have some discussion on it. So.
Yeah, let's just start firing down here. All right, let's go. All right, Article 1, SAP. I think we looked at that and didn't think that there was much of any significant edits there, but We do have the value of having Barry here as well, if we have any questions. All right.
I didn't have any questions on that.
Barry, what were the minor changes? It was just a couple grades, if I remember.
Yeah, and a couple of these happened after I left. The main ones were reorganization in the Board of Health, where they had the part-time health director leave, and they were now combining the health director and nurse position into a full-time health director position in the SAP. And also there's a health agent who essentially does inspectional work. And they've reached an agreement with Northborough where they'll share a person. There'll be an employee of Southborough, but Northborough will pay for half of the salary and benefits. And then I noted after I left, they added an intern position in the rec department and changed the title of that section, which doesn't really have any meaning, but that's really all it is.
Okay.
Oh, and they added a laborer and DPW.
All right. To make this easier for Claire,
I'm gonna make the motion.
Marcy, you want to make the motion, and Howard will be our designated seconder.
Okay, so I'll do like last time where I just move that I make a motion that advisory supports it by article as printed in the warrant. Do you want it like that?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay. So is this Article 1? I'm sorry.
Article 1, yep, sorry.
Okay, so I make a motion that advisory supports Article 1 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Roll call vote, or any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Howard,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Barry, Larry. Gotta mute.
Aye.
And Andrew is aye. Now that I think about it, do we want to do these kind of in a consent format?
No, we should, they're quick enough. I mean, I
Okay,
think.
there's only 18 of them. All right,
It's still quick, but I think we should do them
1 by 1. Okay.
one by one, just because.
Yep. Article 2 is changing the pilot committee, basically reducing it from 7 to 5. They're having trouble getting quorum. I don't really see an issue with that, but anybody have any questions on that one?
Oh.
All right, go ahead, Marcy.
All right. I make a motion that advisory supports Article 2 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Howard,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. 6-0. All right, Article 3. Delete the solid waste disposal committee. I think that's good. It's been inactive for forever, and let's clean up the list
What's a solid waste? Right, okay.
that hasn't met in forever.
I think it's no longer needed is what we're saying too, because.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right. I make a motion advisory supports Article 3 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Seeing no discussion, Howard,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and Larry,
Aye.
and Andrew. It is aye. All right. I think Article 4 is the same situation. All right.
Okay, I make a motion that advisory supports Article 4 as written in the warrant.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna switch it up this time. Larry,
Aye.
Barry. I think you're on, I can hear you there, Barry.
Aye.
Okay, Tim,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Andrew is aye. As I'm sharing my screen, you all show up in a row, so it's just reading down the list. Okay, Article 5 was the meeting minutes one. Have any questions on this one?
This was just cleaning up to state law, or is there something else behind it?
I think there's some of it was state law, but I think
I don't know if any of it was state law.
it was just this kind of provide the list of the open meeting law part. But the other stuff was maybe I think they added this as reasonably possible.
Yeah, and I think
Did it?
part of
Okay.
it is that there's been some confusion about how much was needed for virtual meetings in terms of
Yeah.
minutes. And some committees that weren't providing them because the meetings were virtual.
I think they might have, I think they edited it a little bit because I remember when we first reviewed it, I thought there was like any document referenced or talked about must be included or something like that. Cause I was, using the reference of, okay, I mentioned the Magna Carta. Do we have to include that as a document or, it wasn't really something that we had up on the screen or that was really pertinent to the discussion. So I
Yeah,
think
I mean-
this reasonably possible.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing minutes for MTC for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, we included any document that was presented on the screen or any website
Yeah.
that was presented on the screen, but not just one that was mentioned in passing.
Correct. But I think the original version of this I feel like had a little bit looser language on that and could have been construed to be like anything referenced at all talked about, So, I think this is basically what we've been doing, so I don't really have a problem with it, but anybody else have an issue with the language as written?
I make a motion, advisory supports Article 5 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Right, Tim,
I don't know. I'm a little torn on this, but I'll go aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
I,
and Andrew is aye. And if it becomes too cumbersome or whatever, we can always edit it out. All right, Article 6. I think this was a good one. Did anybody have any questions on this? I think Brian explained it.
No, this is good.
All right,
All right, I make a motion that advisory supports Article 6 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Howard,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Larry,
I,
and Andrew's aye.
Aye.
Yeah, Tim?
Oh, Tim, I missed Tim.
Aye.
Excellent. All right. Article 7, again, I think we talked about that with the select board. I think it makes sense to have a little fun to put the money in, so it doesn't just sweep directly over into Sam or anybody else.
Can we discuss how this works? Where does the money come from, first of all?
So it comes from the public. Well, Barry, you were on the chair of that committee.
Yeah. So the money comes into us from the cable companies, from Verizon, from Comcast, from Charter, and we essentially just turn it over. We're passed through to Sam. Technically, there are legal issues in what we're doing now, so that's why we need to do it this way to comply with state law. There are practical reasons why we want to do it that way as well. For example, Sam doesn't pay any of the legal fees we incur in negotiating the licenses, even though all the money goes to Sam. So that's an ongoing conversation, but bottom line is this is really to comply with state law.
Okay, so it comes to this fund, and then from that fund, it's only, it either sits in this fund or we pay Sam, it can't go anywhere else?
That's
It's
my,
used to offset expenses related to public access media
Right.
operating, right? I think in theory, some of this could go to pay for the stuff that in motion that Jim has to pay for the TV for town meeting, or to Barry's point, for the legal fees related to that, right? So it gives us the option to have the money in our control.
And at some point, we could actually, do they rent the space in the school? How does that work?
Sam?
they do, yeah, they do rent the space in the school.
So this fund would pay that.
Well, I think we give Sam the money and then
Yeah.
Sam pays us back.
Larry has a question.
Sure, yeah, Larry.
Yeah, I just had one question, although I think this is a good idea. Who administers this fund? Who disperses from it?
I would assume the select board, but Barry, do you know?
No, I don't know. This is actually something that's outside the jurisdiction of the cable committee. So this came up and actually after I left, but I assume like Andrew does, that it's the same way that we would manage any other funds that the town has.
Are we ready to hold
Good.
discussion over? Okay. I make a motion, we support Article 7 as printed in the warrant.
Second,
All right, Howard,
aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Barry,
I,
and Tim.
Aye.
Andrew is aye. Okay. Next up is MBTA. I think the language hasn't changed, so that's still the same as we saw the other day. So it's really just on the principle of it. I said all around some information we got from Marguerite and Ryan that basically the voting on the library funds is on hold till the end of the year to see if towns adopt this or don't adopt this. So again, I think this is the state being a little overstepping their technical legal rights in terms of what grants were part of the piece, but that being said, they are doing it. So
Well, then town council needs to get involved, but they're, my stance on this, and the clear thing is very clear. So if by that case, town, what they're doing is not legal based on the thing, but all of that, it's good they're waiting to the end of the year. It's what we should be doing with this article, because until Milton is decided, this should be either killed or indefinitely postponed, because everything rides on what's in the Milton one. If there's not enough information in here, that the planning board has not supplied enough information to let the town make an educated decision on this. And I'll stop there and we can vote it, but there isn't enough information provided, and we really shouldn't be doing this until the legal ramifications are resolved in court.
I mean, for me, just on the library, I'd almost vote to do it. It's going to take 90 days at least for the Attorney General just to review it. By the time that happens, if Milton changes their mind, then we can, we hold a special town meeting and change it back, or wait for annual town meeting. But
I'm the exact opposite, that the small amount that we might get, there's no guarantee we get this grant, even if we're compliant. It's like 50,000. The rest of it have to do with, It's like every other town, the potential damage to our town by accepting this far outweighs any small, especially the small one for the library, to do it now and do it later. It should
Well, I
be
mean, the library one would be in, I think over $10 million.
not
right.
the one we're talking about here. This grant isn't $10 million and it doesn't
No,
bring
but
it.
the library grant that would be held up if we didn't pass this would be $10 million. And I think it's actually, we'd have a better shot at getting it if we were one of the few towns that actually passed this. There might be other people that are in there this year
I
that
don't,
are doing the other thing. I don't, that's my opinion.
and fine, and of course, you're welcome to yours. I'm saying that from everything I've read, for the legal briefs going through that are all supporting Milton, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
During the towns, that even taking a shot where it might get through, because once you pass this, right, once the AG passes it, which could be for Milton, the construction and the programs can start. And there's already a 90 unit system waiting for this that will go through the grandfathered in. So the detriment to the town, in my opinion, is far outweighs the library grant or any other grant. That looks like it's not even legal for them to deny it anyway. So I don't think we should decide this entire thing on one grant for the library. I think we have to look at the entire, what it does to the entire town, where there's been absolutely no studies. We've done not one traffic study. We've done one study of what it's going to do to our school system, our tax base, or anything that we frankly should have done some kind of study, but we haven't had the information till now. But there's been absolutely no studies done to what this is going to do to our town with as a bill.
Again, the studies would have to be done for the projects, right? In order to go through, you still have to go through the permitting process. You just have to do it by
There
right.
is no permitting process. They're by right things. As long as they follow the setbacks and the heights, there is nothing you can do about it. The law specifically says you can hold, planning can hold a peer review, but they cannot stop the project whatsoever. It has less control than a 40B even has. And you're saying you have to do a study on the build out. Well, we defined the areas. We know what the maximum build out of units is going to be on that unit. It would be very easy to do a study on max density and give a worst case scenario. And we're sticking our heads in the sand and saying it's just a zoning bylaw, and that's not fair to the town.
Well, I think also the parcels that were picked are going to, I don't see much getting built on these parcels over our lifetimes.
Well, that may be, but and they did. I think they worked very hard to make that happen. But there's already 90 working, and one sale of a property means something else comes in. So builders build. It's how it works. So I don't see that's the case. And frankly, I don't think the state is stupid, and they haven't approved that plan yet. And they may make required changes, and they'll require changes after this has been approved, and those will just sneak in. So I've said it, and I think everyone knows my point, but I am adamantly against this bylaw. It is unjust. There are, what's the number? 351 communities in the state, and only 177 are responsible for taking on this burden of the state. What about the rest of them? It is unjust, it is unfair, and I don't think it's going to last. So I think as a town, we should be doing what the other 16 towns are doing and tell the state this is not okay and we're not going to play ball.
All right. Anybody else?
Well, I'll just say, as a lawyer, my preference is always to comply with the law. And I think we do recognize that there's an affordable housing, well, there's a housing crunch. And in terms of the 352 towns, the housing crunch is not in the whole state. Where the housing crunch is obviously in eastern Massachusetts, where these communities are. And we can stick our head in the sand and say, well, we don't want to change Southborough, let others deal with it. But I think we have a bigger obligation than that. We're talking about, what is it, 59.5 acres out of a town of over 9,000 acres. So it's less than 1% of the property in the town that could conceivably be impacted over a period of time. And I think the restrictions on building here are reasonable. I think it's the right thing to do, so I support it.
So Barry, let me jump in back. So just to be clear, that small percentage of land you're saying, you will add 1/3 to our population. You will add potentially double the number of students in our school system. And for me, the bigger problem with the law is there's no control by us. The state removes all control. So no more ZBA, no more control. I'm with you that we need more housing and perhaps even denser housing. I'm starting to figure maybe that's okay. But we have 340Bs coming as well that will take care of some of that. But with no oversight by the town and no way to stop and control anything, we give up all that control, and that's not okay in my book. I'm not against the housing. I'm against the lack of control of how it goes in.
Well, but there are controls built into the statute, into the bylaw. It's not like they could just come in and do whatever they want. There are limits.
I
and-
disagree. As long as it's in the zones assigned, they can build fit and stay within the setbacks and height restrictions. There is nothing the town can do to stop a project going in at 15 units an acre.
Right, but it has to be consistent with how the rest of the town looks, for example.
No, it doesn't.
I think it does say that.
It does not say that in the statute. It is by right building. And for that, if by right, if they do want to not do it by right, they can go to the zoning board and get those setbacks kicked out too. But by right, there is nothing by right, as long as it's 2.5 stories or less and meets the setbacks for each zone, there is not much else that it has to
No,
do.
it's right in the statute. It says the building shall have an exterior design that is consistent with the styles of the surrounding residential neighborhood and the town of Southborough in general.
And that is subjective. Does it look like
It's in-
it's in
it's
place or
in
does it look
law.
like trails?
Anybody else?
I think one thing I would want to raise is that I understand the preference to follow the law. I understand the planning board did a lot of work in picking the parcels with feedback. And it's pretty obvious some of these parcels would very unlikely ever be built on. The problem I have with that is that there were parcels in town that wanted to be included that could have produced housing in a reasonable manner, locations such as Route 9 that were excluded. So we have a pitch to plan for zoning that will promote housing while excluding parcels that could have, in a reasonable way, added to the housing of the town. So for those reasons, I'm having a hard time with this proposal.
When you say Route 9, Marcy, are those areas of Route 9 that are zoned commercial?
I watched a few of the meetings. I think it's Mr. Heavy's property near Walgreens. He came several times. Mr. Bartolini came to the joint select board advisory meeting and basically said he had a parcel that could have been included and it was excluded. I just think we run a fine line of saying we're planning for housing when we actually pick properties that will not be developed and exclude properties that could. So for me, while I'm not, opposed to abiding by the law, I just think I have a hard time supporting that.
See, I think it's kind of in the middle, right? Between people that don't want to comply and don't want to do this at all, and people that want the housing. What this plan is basically satisfying the law with parcels that are difficult to be developed anytime soon and are probably financially unable to, right? I mean, we picked Madison Place, for instance. I think the allowance for units at Madison Place is like 10 more than they currently have. right? So, okay, the owner of that is going to tear the thing down to the ground to add 10 more units. No, it's just going to stay in Madison Place, right? It's there's really no impact. And that's 300 and something of the 800 units, right? The other one being 24 St. Martin Drive, which is in Marlboro. You can't even access it from Southborough. It's a large commercial building with tenants and it's relatively new. They'd have to raise that to the ground. They'd have to get Marlboro's permission to do it in a commercial zone because it's not part of their MBTA. And they need to connect into Marlboro streets, right? Or helicopter people in, right? It's difficult, right? So all these parcels are difficult to turn over. So it's kind of satisfying the law, but in a time, and to a staggered approach at which it could happen over years as these properties start to dwindle and start to be in disrepair and they want to change it over from commercial to residential or multifamily. Could happen, but I think it's a good compromise to people that don't want to do it at all and want to fight it versus do as much as they can.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Andrew. I appreciate that, and I also really want to be clear that I appreciate the work the planning board did. I agree with Howard's, on the face of it, but I disagree that this is going to produce probably any meaningful housing, which is the intent of the law, right? So we're still, in a way, I would say, not sincere in our approach to increase housing in Southborough, but that's just my opinion. That's sort of where I get hung up on this. Not that I'm, in favor per se of increasing housing and, to the degree that this could impact us all, but I just think there may be, I grapple with, what is the real intent?
Yeah, Mimi had her hand raised. I don't promote her.
I would just add too, I watched a lot of other town meetings and reviews by planning boards, et cetera. And, a lot of folks in other towns that are pushing back do really feel this is an egregious overreach, coming close to sort of a quid pro quo extortion by the state for, tax money we've already paid to be withheld, if we don't comply. So some of the towns in recent meetings I've heard, I don't know where it's at this point. I think Holden was one who basically made the argument that if the state can get this done, what's next? And I think that gets to Howard's point, which is if zoning is passed, then, what's the state going to do next to incentivize the building on those parcels and further remove any sort of oversight that the town has? And I think that's just maybe an important point to raise that I hadn't really thought about, sort of the what's next.
And what's next for us? So Andrew, in the report we got regarding the police that we agreed to an agreement, they asked for additional officers, and one of the reasons they cited was the 200 units in Madison Place. So as this gets built, let's just take the 90 units. Is that another officer? Is another, if not 200 units now, do we need another ambulance? All of this is not funded by the state. It all comes down to us. So as the advisory board, who's responsible for the finances of this town, we should be looking at that and what this really means to the town. And none of that has been done. So even if you're for this, I would even almost say we should indefinitely postpone this until the law is actually hashed out to what it's really going to be.
Mimi, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Good conversation. I just wanted to inform the advisory committee that the planning board did submit both the bylaw and the overlay districts to the bylaw to the Attorney General's office and the overlays to the Executive Office of Housing and Living Communities for their pre-adoption review. And we got positive feedback. So both have been accepted by both the AG and EOHLC.
We don't have to worry about them rejecting it in the model and sending it back to us after. We're good.
Been there once, that was enough.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Mimi. Any questions for Mimi while she's here? Going once, going twice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi.
Freddie had her hand up. Let me allow her to talk.
Am I on now?
Yeah, you can talk.
Hi there, I'm Freddie Gillespie, speaking as a private citizen. I live on Southfield Road and I'm opposed to the passing this at this time. I wanted to say I acknowledge the hard work done by the planning board trying to get it right, and I was not opposed until they picked the 2 lots on Southfield Road. And I want to talk about those 2 lots. We have a lot of people saying we need more housing and diversity in housing. And I'm one of those who agree with that. And I've actually proposed to the select board through the Open Space Commission, working with Shopsy, that there is a parcel of land that we should be purchasing for open space and really meaningful housing that can go down to 30, 40, 50%, up to 100% of the median income. I kind of, take offense at at the meeting saying that we need diversity in housing and we don't need more $1 million housing. Somebody just said on Facebook who lives in one, but none of these residents put the markers in their neighborhoods. So it's, it's not that I'm a NIMBY, don't want it on my street, but at this density, when all of the other properties were chosen to not be developed, and then you pick one that's ready to go, it's ready to go because the owner has met with the town planner to discuss putting housing there. It's vacant for sale. The business is no longer there on one parcel. It is a total of 94 units by right. And no one looked at the traffic, no one looked at the environmental, no one looked at the relationship of what living there will be for the families that are going to go there. But then I hear no families, but the law says you have, it's built for families. This is on a street where I can't get out of my driveway without risking being slammed by a car doing over 50 miles an hour every single time. And they go by much faster. There's no sidewalk on that side of the street and unlikely ever to have one because of wetlands and river crossing. So how are these children going to get across the street and where are they going to play? How are the commuters going to get across the street? I spoke with the peer reviewer for the traffic study for the 40B at 120. And I described what the allowed height and building, there's no traffic study. So I grabbed him after the meeting in the hall and asked him, he said, figure seven trips a day. That's a lot of car trips every day on this section of road. And it's going to go to all the feeder roads, not just to Southfield Road. They're not just going to drive over to Ashland magically, which I think is probably the plan, because all of these choices are at the edge of town, right? Typically, I know the road I go, and I'm going to be cutting down Woodbury Road, and so are they. Breakneck Hill, Woodland, out to Route 9, depending on which way you're going. And then the regular traffic that hits the Southville 85 intersection that's getting backed up, they're going to go other ways that's going to back up all of this road you already hear about with the problems with the kids, no sidewalks, Parkerville with the schools. So my complaint about this is that we could have done better. And if you want housing, there were other lots. You could have worked with one of the developers who was asking to be chosen to find out a way that the traffic could have flowed better and it could have had meaningful attributes for the families living there. This lot is sandwiched between 2 industrial lots. And the other thing is there's a train track right behind it. That's not a great place for kids to be growing up because studies have shown the diesel exhaust creates more asthma and respiratory illnesses, particularly harming children. Additionally, the river right in that section of town is aside from around the reservoir, it's the most biodiverse, critically important habitat that you're going to be destroying with this development, because the wastewater for 94 units eventually discharges the nitrates and phosphates. Once the soil absorbs it and is saturated, it will leach into the river. The lights from the building, even with a light law bylaw, there is light that will shine onto the surrounding area, and the noise pollution. And you have people living right across the street that didn't even be notified that this was coming. You have a whole section of town where these lots are that weren't part of the original half mile district. They were never notified that this section of town was their backyards, their neighborhood was going to be included. They still don't know. I'm talking to people who live across the street and down the street, never been notified. Yet the people in the original half mile that supposedly mapped it in their neighborhood.
Freddie, let's start wrapping it up a little bit here.
I'm sorry. Haven't had a chance to say this, and I'll say this. It's not the planning board's fault or the town's fault. They got stuck with a really bad bylaw to fix, and they did the best they could. The problem is we should have gone to the state joined with all the other towns that have to pass it, not the ones that haven't passed it, but the ones that still haven't, plus the ones that didn't, and say not one size does not fit all. Our half mile district is not the same as Framingham or Marlborough. We're not a city. We're not urban. We don't have the infrastructure to support this kind of development. And it's already the most diverse, affordable section of town that you're putting more of a burden on. And there are better places in town to put the developable lots. That's why you should say no. Go to the state and give the planning board time to come up with another plan if we have to pass it, and get it done before the end of the year if that has to be done. But at least get a chance to have Milton come through. And also the point Howard made is absolutely true. When this passes, those 90 units get built, whether you decide to go back later and undo it, because it will be grandfathered. The property owner will put the plan in, those 94 units go the minute you pass it. So that's it. Thank you for letting me share, and I'm sorry if I overshared.
Thanks, Freddie. All right. Anybody else more discussion, or you ready to vote? All right, Marcy.
Is it Article 8? I'm just making sure.
Hold on.
It is.
Little thing. Yes.
All right. I make a motion that advisory supports Article 8 as written in the warrant.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Larry? You're on mute though.
Sorry about that. No.
Marcy?
Oh,
Tim?
Aye.
Barry? You're on mute.
Aye.
Howard?
Nay.
And I'm gonna do aye, so we're gonna be a split vote, so we might have to wait till town meeting when if Adam can join us. All right. Okay. Next one, Article 9, the recommendation for the rec. Does anybody have any questions on that one? We had done a lot of analysis on it over the years. I would say I think certainly this plan looks better, but does anyone want Sam to talk about it? Him and Al were the point people on it.
Can we do it 5 minutes or less, just to see where we are if anything's changed?
Sam, do you mind giving us a quick 5-second elevator pitch? I don't see him raising his hand. Okay. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, happy to provide a quick update. As you, I'm sure recall, this came up at a prior town meeting, a lot of questions and concerns. And over the last year or so, a small working group, Al Hamilton and myself, the chiefs and Mark Purple, have gone around and interviewed a significant number of people who are either running RECs currently, thinking about it, working on it, participating in it, et cetera, et cetera. And we've reviewed all the concerns that people expressed previously. And I think as somebody mentioned, the primary concern was the location for the Westboro REC at a Superfund site. And they've changed the locations for that. They've moved that proposed site basically downtown in Westboro near the fire station. And the bottom line is that, at least for us, the issue is public safety. And that currently, historically, we've had one dispatcher on duty. And anybody in public safety will tell you that for a complex event, if it's a medical, for example, dispatchers on the phone with an individual giving CPR instructions or whatever, simultaneously has to find resources to get whatever ambulance or other emergency people to that location. And it is a real stretch, and it's a complex job. It's more than one person can safely handle. And we've staffed up some now. We've added a couple of bodies that we get 2 people on some shifts now. But even with that, you don't have the depth that a REC has. The smallest RECs would typically have 4 or 5 people on a shift, for example, to handle those kind of events safely and capably. And so that's the ultimate piece. We're probably not going to save a lot of money in the long run. The state provides a fair amount of subsidy for the first 5 years and technology support thereafter. But from an operating expense standpoint, we expect we'll spend about the same amount of money ultimately that we're spending now, or at least previously, with one person on duty 24/7. But we get substantially greater depth of coverage. And that, for us at least, has been the bottom line. Westboro is an advantage because if we join them, we will get on the ground floor, have a position on the board of directors for the REC, and a stronger say in operations than we would if we were, the last one in a 10-town REC, for example. We'd have a lot less influence. So again, it's going to come. The state is pressing hard for people to consolidate this, harder and harder to have your own single dispatch unit going forward. The rest of the country is far ahead of us in this stuff. Massachusetts, with the history of individual town government and silos here, is way behind the world in terms of this stuff. I think New Hampshire has 4 RECs for the entire state. California has something like 40 RECs across the entire state. And so again, it's going to happen probably eventually because you just can't afford to do your own, particularly with technology expenses. You got to upgrade your technology every 5 years or so, and that's getting increasingly expensive. So I think the many factors push toward doing it. The question is when. We've got an opportunity with Westboro now, and there's a strong push for us to do it with our mutual aid partners in terms of fire and police. Westboro offers that to us, and so that's a much easier transition for us to do it than going to a different REC out there in other places. So that's sort of where we are. Recommendation is to move as quickly as we can to join Westboro. And we've got some other issues with people concerned about a dark station. Proposal is to staff administratively for the first year, 24/7, and then evaluate at that point and see where we go from there. And we still wind up being net even or ahead from a financial standpoint. So that's it. Any questions? Happy to answer.
I have
Thanks,
one.
Sam. Oh, sorry. I was just to say the only thing I would add, Sam, and I think from a financial standpoint that I think people should be aware of is this should take care of any upgrade we would have to do in the near future. So by the time we get to building the station is around the time that we need to upgrade the equipment in the station. So that would save us from a capital cost at that perspective. And then 2, I visited the one in Foxborough, and it was very evident that the equipment and the facility in terms of just FF&E is far superior than what we have. The software, the tools, the computers, the monitors, the stations that they sit at, right there, it's like Star Trek. Now we don't know what this one looks like because it's new, but my assumption would be that it would have the same bells and whistles that that one had that we don't have. I mean, they had 3 different redundant internet. You know, they had 2 fiber lines, they had what microwave and satellite internet, and then, you know, backup generators galore and nuclear hardened and you know, go on and go on. But that having multiple towns together gives us kind of that borrowing and kind of ability to kind of pool resources to get better equipment, not just people.
Directionally, that's certainly correct. I'm not sure we'd have a facility that's equivalent to that. That actually was an AT&T regional facility built back during the Cold War. So that's got 3-foot thick concrete walls built for nuclear blast kind of stuff. So we're not going to do that.
I think, Sam, right now we don't even have backup internet at the.
Yep. So, and you mentioned Foxborough, Andrew. Our new fire chief, Andrew Pantini, actually spent 18 years or something in the Foxborough Fire Department there, and is very familiar with that rec operation. And he is fully on board. Chief Newell is on board with this as well. So again, it will have some, I'm sure, transition pain along the way, but this is certainly the direction for the future, and a lot of pluses in terms of safer responses to emergency events.
Howard, go ahead.
My only comment was a suggestion, Sam, that if I remember from last town meeting, one of the concerns of the residents was current employees losing their seniority.
Yes.
So I don't know if we're going to a brand new thing, if that's something that can be negotiated. I just think that would certainly be another hurdle to not have to jump over, and it sounds reasonable if there's as we go into a new thing as part of negotiation. I don't know what that means as far as, you know, if they keep their, you know, how many, you know, their number of years that they've worked continue over or something, but that's not something, sounds something easily negotiated into the new system that again seemed like a very large hurdle at town meeting that might help. So
yes, we actually discussed that with several of the recs that are operating out there. Turns out, for a variety of reasons, that's hard to do in terms of preserving seniority. I think there's a strong possibility that jobs will be preserved. Our current draft of the agreement that we're looking at with Westboro gives priority interviewing to Southborough candidates, and we actually don't have that many people in Southborough who are looking for that job, because many people view that as a temporary job on their way to serve as a firefighter or police officer. And I think a couple of people is it likely that would be looking for jobs. And frankly, it is hard to hire dispatchers nowadays. So those jobs are hard to fill. We've had, I guess, 1.5 positions open now that we're trying to find someone for. So there's a very good chance that our staff will, A, certainly get considered for those jobs in Westboro, and B, get hired there, because again, it's hard to fill those spots. But we've tried to figure out a way to guarantee that, and sadly, it doesn't seem to be possible as we're told. So
again, I just remember that being a very strong opinions on that. So.
Yep. We heard that, certainly.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the refresher.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Should I make a motion? Is that all? All right, I move that we support Article 9 as printed in the warrant.
Second?
All right. Howard.
Aye.
Barry.
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
Marcy.
Aye.
Larry.
Aye.
Andrew is aye. All right. Article 10 is the citizens petitions appointments to the CPC that we talked with Lisa and Ben about. Does anybody have any further questions or comments on that one?
This is a tough one. I know where it's coming from, and
yeah,
I'm just not sure that's a reason to change it.
Yeah, I try to take the examples or the thing that break the rule out of the rule. You know, I don't like creating bylaws because they didn't like a single decision or 2 decisions that were made. But at the same time, I also understand where they're coming from. So yeah, I agree, Howard. I'm kind of torn on this one.
But I also, the new thing for me that came to light is whatever 90% of the other towns are doing it the way they're proposing.
Yeah.
So there's validity, but we know how we got here. So
No, I'd much prefer to go with what you suggested, Andrew. I think that's a fabulous compromise and solves their problem, but still gives the select board some control over who's on the CPC. So hopefully they'll take your advice and move in that direction. But like the rest of you, I struggle with what they're proposing now.
And if we want, we can say, you know, people don't support it in its current thing and they want to see that edit made, we can just say, keep it at town meeting and wait to see if they meet in, you know, just beforehand and propose an edit to it. But I'm open to either taking a vote on it now and voting again when they make the change, or holding off.
I'm happy to wait.
Okay. Anybody else have strong feelings either way?
no.
Okay. All right, I'll leave it at, unless somebody wants to make a motion, let's say we just leave it at town meeting to see if they make that final edit.
It does mean we have to decide at town. Are we gonna have a meeting before town meeting? Are we getting a room, or are we gonna do this on the floor?
I think we could just do it on the floor. You know, as they make the motion, I think we can just huddle up and all in favor and all opposed, and then if they want to put it on the screen. I wasn't planning on having a meeting before, but we certainly can as well if we need to.
Sure, we need one. I was just asking what your thoughts were.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, we put the warrant back up. Yeah, on Article 11. This is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund edits. Okay, so this is that they never actually. It was approved by Attorney General, so the same language that was approved in 2005. But just ratifying that they're not sure that they actually got Attorney General approval for it. So sounds like housekeeping. Any questions there?
So is that true? Is that how it's running now? And
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking this at its word. I didn't go back and check line by line, but
no, it'd just be.
it's the same language that was approved in 2005.
Okay.
It's just, I think we have to approve it again to have it go to the AG for approval.
So we're Article 12,
Article 11.
Article 11, sorry, lost track there. Okay. I make a motion to approve Article 11 as written in the warrant.
Second?
Barry,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. All right. Okay, and then the Article 12 and okay, I think that's the one where they're merging the Shopsy and the Housing Trust together.
Do anybody want to talk about this one, or
I don't think so.
I'm still trying to figure out what we're missing out of this one.
I mean, it sounded like it was, I believe it was, Sam can chime in. I think it was approved by both Shopsy and to basically streamline, but let's see what Sam has to say.
Andrew, I could speak to that for a minute if I may.
Please.
The goal of this was to actually get the money and the skill set in the same place for creating housing. Today, the Housing Trust Fund has the ability to do a lot of things that other committees can't. Specifically, it can buy property without town meeting approval. But the people on the trust fund today are the select board, 5 members plus 2 at-large positions. And none of us, with possible exception of Al Hamilton, have experience in creating housing. And so the goal was to simply get the money in the same place as people who would have the skills. And the theory is that we would have people that are skill-based on the new trust fund committee, like finance, housing construction, development, housing advocate, those kind of skill sets there to actually create housing and get something done, because Shopsy has not created much housing over the last 15 or so years, and that's what we're trying to fix. So that's the goal here of combining these two and getting money and skills in the same bucket.
Sam, did Shopsy take a position on it?
They approved it.
Approved it, okay.
Sam, can you see any negative, something we're losing by doing this?
One extra
I
committee.
don't think it's negative. I mean, it basically streamlines the process.
Okay.
So that's
I'm
why.
every time we get rid of a board, and I think it brings a pause to look at it. That's all. So I like the premise and how you're explaining it. I'm just wondering what's missed. And maybe nothing. It may just be a perfect easy solution. I'm just something's detained.
There's far more upside than downside, I think, since we haven't been creating much housing. But
All right.
I make a motion, we support Article 12 as written in the warrant.
Second?
Okay, roll call vote. Howard,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Andrew's aye. All right, we're almost there. So there was a couple small budget items. Description here, just some minor expense lines. It's coming out of overlay, so in theory it won't affect taxes.
Right, I make a motion, we support Article 13 as printed in the warrant.
Second?
All right, Howard,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Andrew is aye. Okay, Article 14. We already voted on. But does anybody want to revote that? We were unanimous before. All right. Article 15 is a tough pill to swallow. This is for the Breakneck Hill piece.
Yep.
I don't know what else to do here. I think we are basically bound to do it, or pay the fines. Or they'll basically just do it on our behalf and take it out of state aid. But
A way to say this is it, that this is gonna cover it. I don't know who we're negotiating with to do the remediation.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like this is the worst case scenario, and basically every drop of dirt is going to be handled as if it's all asbestos. So it better be the last dollar we're spending on this.
So the next site, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, personally, I think this goes to show why we need to be very careful about, acquiring land. I mean, I think Freddie was talking about that farm parcel up on near 495 that they wanted to buy for open space or for housing, and after this, I am gun shy of acquiring any more land in this town, unless it's rock solid environmentally.
How much has been spent on this
About
already?
another, a prior, I think it's about 2.1 million already, so it's gonna be about 4.2 total. And I think we spent $5 million buying it too.
And what are we doing with this property? That's the, right? It's just open. space.
This is Brickneck Hill. Right,
Right, it's just the farm on, it's the dump on Breakneck. Hill, right?
so when it was a prior farm under the prior owners, right, they dumped all this stuff. A lot of it being roofing shingles that had asbestos, that is now too small. Melissa Danza has a whole presentation on it that's a lot more detailed, but it's all too small to be able to be screened out, so it's in the soil, and basically they're just gonna have to dump of it all as if it's basically asbestos.
Screen it all, basically dig it, screen it.
Yeah, they can't, they thought they could screen out the material and just dispose the material and not the soil, but basically they're just gonna.
Yeah, again, I don't have this, our hands are almost tied on this. We're gonna have to do it.
I mean, I know the select board reached out to our state reps and, try to go federally to see, is there any other. But it's not a Superfund site, it's not this, that, and the other thing, it just doesn't fit into a pretty box in terms of an already existing program. But it's tough. Now, it's just. I don't know. And in my research, and again, I'm not an expert on this, looking at like, what do you do if you don't, right? Because you have the administrative consent order. If the town doesn't do it, the state steps in and does it, and then just basically nets the cost out of like state aid. So it sounds like it's going to get done, yes or yes, because they're here. So I don't know. Any
It
other
is what it is.
Yeah. But that's.
I mean, I don't know what works out 2 resident per household, but it's still a tough bill. But again, we have a choice. Remember, the fines were daily until it's cleaned up, right?
Or basically, if you just don't do it, they'll do it. They'll come in and do it and charge you for it. All right.
Andrew, I might have missed this. I think select board talked about it a little bit, but there's some sort of review of what the contractor estimate is, right? They can't just say suddenly, well, we need another 2 million to finish the project. Like, I think somebody had to vet that.
Yeah, Melissa went through it with a fine tooth comb, and I think she tried everything she could do on, different trucking methodologies and different things. And, she wrote a pretty long, lengthy report on it, that it definitely sounds like the due diligence has been done. It's just we're kind of up the creek here without a paddle. And
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think they even went through, understanding like, is there any recourse with the sale of the land with the prior owners?
Yeah.
And, I think that the owner was passed away and it's been exchanged hands, and, it's nothing at this point for that.
Right. I make a motion we approve Article 15 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
All right, Howard,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
and with a begrudgingly aye.
I think we're all progression.
I mean, I just speaking personally, the amount of work that we do to save $2 million on the budget process and everything else we do, and then just it's just gone, evaporates. It's a tough one, but it is what it is. Okay. Article 16 we voted on. Article 17 is to change, basically allow the select board more flexibility to do the date for town meeting, which I think is good, because we've changed this article like 5 times in the last few years, and it doesn't seem to be making it any better, and I think giving them some flexibility is good.
Yes, it comes down to best for who, but again, I don't have a problem with this.
Well, I mean, they moved it because it was supposed to be, you know, okay, it'll be on the weekends and more people with kids will come, but we've had the worst turnout since then. And so I think this just kind of gives,
You know, the other things, right? So yes, weekends aren't necessarily better. So.
yeah, so, and this just gives them the flexibility. And I think, you know, they're doing a lot of work to make sure, okay, the new cafeteria this time so that people can bring kids and do different things to make it accommodating. I have faith that the select board wants to get as many people there, and we'll make the right call. And so I'm okay with it, but any other?
All right, I make a motion. We approve Article 17 as written in the warrant.
Second?
Okay. Larry,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. And the last one is Article 18, which is the recall, which I actually think could make some sense. But my understanding is that from town council that it's not an enforceable article.
Yeah, it's not.
It's currently written.
And we've talked about this many times in this group about non-binding. I don't like. I'm not necessarily against it. I just don't like how it got here.
Yeah.
And he was at the transfer station collecting signatures, and I kind of gave him a hard time and asked him, like, did you go to the select board first?
Yeah.
And if you did that first, and then they said no, and but again, I don't like how it. I'm not really think it's a bad thing. I find it inefficient.
Yeah, Larry Barry, for your reference, in the past, advisory has taken kind of the position that we don't want to support a citizen's petition that is one, advisory in nature, and B, had not actually gone to the committee that they're looking to advise to discuss and have them take it up. Right. I mean, it's basically, you collect a few signatures and you can come to the town meeting and get on your soapbox and say all these things. Just in general, right, as opposed to actually kind of trying to go through the process and work with the committee you're looking to advise to kind of make that change outside of town meeting. And to Howard's point, if they say no, then yeah, it's a different story. But
what confuses me is that this article could have been an article to create a committee. A town meeting can create a committee, the moderator would appoint, and you could require the committee to report back 1 year later.
Yeah.
On the topic of whatever. It could be a topic to create a recall bylaw. That I would have voted for.
Yeah, or to at least research it, understand it, what would the impact be, how would it look? And maybe we do that. But again, I think as it stands here, how it's written and as it's been opined on by town council, I can't vote to support it.
Yeah. Again, I'm not against the principle, I think. And it's not, I don't remember the exact wording, it was just the select board. I think any board, I think it plays into the discussion we had earlier that we don't have a recall vote for any position in team. And maybe we should, maybe this is correct, but again, it should be a very high bar. I don't want, it's not something that's going to be used annually, if ever, right?
Yeah.
It should be a very high bar to make that happen.
Great.
But
I would say I like the concept, don't like this version. But more work to be done. All right.
Andrew, I'm a little confused how this is a citizen petition, but CPC one is not.
CPC should be a citizen petition. Is it not?
Oh.
Does it not say there in the?
Yeah, I guess, well, earlier someone said, well, this will be binding.
that's what
And now we're,
Well, citizens petitions can be binding. They just have to be written correctly.
I see. I see. So that's the difference.
right? Like the
Okay.
pilot committee was a citizen's petition and that was drafted correctly and,
Right.
became bylaw.
Right. You can.
I mean,
you
that's another argument, in my opinion, against Article 10, because it could have been brought forward by the committee, but it wasn't.
And, I had made that suggestion that CPC can sponsor an article, but I think they were worried that maybe select board wouldn't put it on the warrant, whereas a citizen petition has to.
I think I heard that. So anyway, sorry. Thank you for clarifying, because I was getting confused if it was or wasn't. Thank you.
Yeah, a citizen petition can certainly be binding. It's just, it has to be written correctly.
Should I make a motion? Are we voting or no?
Is it a legalese issue or what makes this not correct?
you can't direct the select board to do anything. Town meeting can't direct the select board
Yeah.
to do anything because they derive their authority from the state.
I think he would have had to take the Hopkinton language and put it in here and say amend the town code to add section blah, 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 and insert the language.
And 10 is marked as a citizen's position. I'm not gonna-
Thank you. Okay. Motion to approve Article 18 as written in the warrant.
Second?
Okay, so the motion is to support.
Oh,
Howard,
I thought I said that. Sorry. To support. Okay.
Second and
Barry,
No,
Tim,
No,
Marcy,
No.
Larry,
No.
and Andrew is no. All right. Let's do minutes. Do those real quick.
Could I ask another question about Article 10, just so I can think about it before the meeting? Your proposal is that any committee would put forward a member for CPC at the same time they're being reappointed?
No, just that the term of appointment would coincide with their existing term in the underlying committee.
Okay, so with the next round,
Like on historical, if, okay, Grant, you're gonna join,
makes sense.
your term on the historical expires, June 30th, 2027. Then Grant's term would expire the same on CPC.
Okay. Thank you.
If I go to the 8/27 meeting minutes, that's the one with the joint meeting with the select board. I didn't have any edits there. Anybody? Okay.
Motion to approve the August 27th minutes as written.
second?
All right. Howard,
Aye.
Barry,
aye,
Tim,
aye,
Marcy,
Aye.
Andrew, Larry.
Aye.
Andrew's aye, and Larry's doing a lot of thumbs up, so he gets.
No,
the thumb up.
I'm actually not doing anything. I don't know where those.
It's because you had your hand here on your shirt, and it's picking up the thumbs up.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Oh, Zoom. Okay, and then the other minutes I had were the ones from 7/10, right?
July 10th, and
That was another joint meeting. I didn't have any edits on that one either.
I didn't either.
Okay. Marcy, you want to go
Motion.
ahead?
Yeah, motion to approve the minutes from July 10th as written.
second?
All right, Howard,
Aye.
Barry,
I'm going to abstain. I wasn't there.
Tim,
aye,
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Andrew is aye. Okay. Is there any public comment? Seeing no hands raised. Any other business properly brought forth? Anybody? So I think for next time we meet, we'll probably be town meeting unless something comes up and we want to take a vote on anything. But I think we're in pretty good shape. I'll send these over to Mark and the team to put into the presentation for the screen. But other than that, any other questions?
Did you say we'll be revoting MBTA as a split vote at town meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I
Is
think
that
when Adam's there, I think
okay.
it's worth giving him a opportunity to break the tie or have anybody change their vote. But I'd
Okay.
like,
I mean, that'll be good to hear all the, feedback, because I think we all have, some of us at least.
yeah, it's a
it'll be
complex
interesting.
issue.
I know. Not to extend the meeting now, but I just want to make sure that's what you said. Thank you, Andrew.
No, I mean, we'll have them put it split for now, and then we can decide if we want to revote it again. Somebody has to make the motion. It has to be seconded. So if we don't have that, then we won't revote it. But we'll at least put split for now, and if we change it, we'll have them change it on the screen.
Thank you.
All righty. Is there a motion to
Motion
adjourn?
to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, Howard,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Andrew is aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Monday. Bye-bye.
Good, everybody.
Right. Night.
Good night.